They shared a love for God and each other.
Melvin and Jennifer fell in love at first sight.
She was just finally happy she met someone that she didn't have to make go to church.
They were on the road to be married.
Until their plans for a blissful future took a hellish turn.
Everyone is bound.
There was a shooting on campus. It was in broad daylight.
Are there more shots to come? That was my first thought.
But as police raced to the scene, they could never imagine the horror they were about to expose, or the unspeakable evil burning deep in the heart of one of these seemingly God-fearing people.
I just didn't take it that far in my mind, that somebody would be so evil.
Everybody is just going, what the hell just happened?
Tuesday, March 23rd, 1993, Houston, Texas. It's just past 5 p.m., and friends and fellow nursing students, Jennifer Lewis and Cheryl Oliver, are heading across the campus of Houston Community College to attend their evening classes.
Do you have your cup of gown yet?
Yes. We were about 6 weeks away from graduation. It was a warm day, and I want to say the wind was blowing because I remember you could hear the sounds of the trees. We had our inner arms locked. We were walking across the street, that fun, loving, bubbly attitude of hers, talking about something of nothing. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
It's a beautiful day, but suddenly the sound of gunfire rips through the air.
Everyone is bound.
It literally sounded like a car backfiring.
What was that? Oh my gosh, what happened?
She was a little quiet and she says, "I've been shot."
And that's when she saw a wound in Jennifer's chest.
My first thought was move. That's why we started running, because I didn't know if it was a random shooter. Are there more shots to come? That was my first thought.
Cheryl and Jennifer run for cover, but even with Cheryl's help, Jennifer doesn't get very far.
I remember trying to get a gallop or a pace or a run with her, but she got heavier and heavier and heavier with every step, to the point that I did let her go or ease her down to the ground. Things just slowed down. I remember standing there next to her, a couple of nursing instructors trying to do CPR, and I remember visibly seeing the blood move through their fingers.
Within minutes, first responders are on the scene. They fight desperately to save Jennifer's life.
The atmosphere was literally of shock. The faces, I can remember the faces. I looked at the faces of our teachers. They were shocked, they were shaking.
The authorities sealed off the area to preserve whatever evidence was there. EMS took Jennifer to Bentop Hospital because they're known for having a really good trauma unit.
Sadly, Jennifer doesn't make it to the ER.
By the time the paramedics got her to Bentop Hospital, which is probably 2.5 to 3 miles away from the scene, if that far, she was dead. And I'm sure they worked on her at the hospital to try to bring her back if possible, but she did not show any life when they left the scene.
Back on campus, police are scrambling to figure out who shot Jennifer and why.
The witnesses were stunned. Everybody is just going, what the hell just happened?
Everyone was shocked. It didn't make sense.
Why was she killed, especially in broad daylight on the way to school? Jennifer had no enemies. Jennifer was a sweet girl. She got along with everyone. A lot of people were puzzled.
Born in 1966, Jennifer Lewis grew up in a tight-knit religious family in Houston's Yellowstone neighborhood.
It was a good part of town. We played all day. I was the oldest and she was the baby, so by me being 10 years older than her, I took care of her a lot. She didn't get in a lot of trouble. She was always really happy. She was that type of person, always laughing, always in a good mood.
In high school, Jennifer really came into her own. She was a beautiful girl, and by all accounts, she was one of the most popular girls in her class.
She had a light-colored skin, a smile that would light up a room, an earthly angel.
And though she had her fair share of admirers, Jennifer wasn't big on chasing boys.
She didn't date a lot. She had, boyfriends here and there, but she was she's a good girl.
After high school, Jennifer was accepted into Houston Community College's well-respected nursing program. It was a dream come true for both Jennifer and her family.
She was going to be the first one to graduate from college. She was going to be a nurse. She had a plan.
All of our goals were to get out of nursing school, make some money, get a job, get on our own. There was not a dating life. It was school. We dated those books.
However, Jennifer did make room in her life for one very special relationship.
Jennifer was a very proud Christian woman. She put that before anything. She attended church on a regular basis. She was very active in the church. She told me that all she had time was for church and nursing because she was always studying.
We studied a lot, but we never got together without reading scripture, without reading the Bible, without her expressing some story about God.
So it came as a bit of a surprise when, in the spring of 1992, Jennifer made time for something new in her life: romance.
She met a man, his name was Melvin.
Melvin was a mail carrier, and he was also a assistant pastor, I believe, at the church that Jennifer was attending at the time.
Meeting some guy who's an associate pastor at the church would be a good fit for her since she, was Christian and she had strong Christian beliefs. I was so happy.
Melvin and Jennifer kind of clicked right away. Melvin did everything he could to please Jennifer, everything he could. So they had a beautiful relationship. When he loved hard.
With the roots of their relationship planted deeply in their Christian faith, it seemed only a matter of time before Jennifer and Melvin strolled down the aisle together.
I knew they were crazy about each other, okay? They loved each other very much.
She was just finally happy she met someone that she could marry and settle down with, and someone that she didn't have to make go to church. Yeah, she was happy with him like that.
But before Jennifer and Melvin ever heard the church bells ring, an eruption of gunfire ripped those dreams asunder.
Jennifer and Cheryl, they were walking to the school, to class, as they always do, and she was shot.
The day went from bright, sunny, warm, our arms interlocked, jovial, to a horror story. A horror story.
With Jennifer pronounced dead on arrival at nearby Bentob Hospital, the scene back on campus is one of chaos and confusion.
Everyone seemed to think that it was just some random shooting on campus, but they were afraid. They were shocked.
We have no idea what's going on here. Do we have a lone gunman that's targeting students on campus?
They need to find the shooter, and they need to find him now.
What investigators don't know is that the hunt for Jennifer's killer will lead them down a path that would prove her murder wasn't the result of a random shooting. It was cold, calculated, and deeply personal.
At the time, I'm 21, 22 years old. I'm still not putting that kind of evil in anybody's heart.
For 27-year-old Jennifer Lewis, 1993 was shaping up to be the best year of her life.
She was about to graduate nursing school, and she had just found her soulmate in assistant pastor Melvin.
She loved him. They had a nice relationship, and she felt like she'd be spending many years with him.
But that plan went horribly wrong on the afternoon of March 23rd, when Jennifer was gunned down on her way to class.
Jennifer was transported from the scene to the hospital where she passed away.
I went numb. Yeah, I went numb because I couldn't believe my friend who, we were just hopping along across the street, getting ready to go into class, that this life could be gone in an instant.
I was outraged. It was like, no, not Jennifer, of all people.
As police unfurl the crime scene tape and begin collecting evidence, a campus-wide search for Jennifer's killer is launched.
Police were worried the gunman may end up targeting other students. It was a race against the clock before more people were killed.
Got any cameras here?
But after scouring the entire campus, authorities can find no sign of Jennifer's killer.
There was no shooter on campus, no one else was shot, and there were no other reports of gunfire.
If it was someone who was out to just shoot anyone, then Jennifer would not have been the only person shot.
The lack of additional victims isn't the only clue that suggests Jennifer's attacker wasn't your standard issue campus sniper.
Authorities did not find a gun.
At the scene, there was no cartridges found. There was no bullet found.
Being that there were no bullet casings found at the scene, authorities are thinking that the weapon that was used by the shooter may have been a revolver.
Investigators turn their attention to the crime's eyewitnesses, including Jennifer's friend and classmate, Cheryl Oliver.
So I understand you saw what happened.
When Jennifer was shot and I heard the sound, thinking it was a car backfiring, she says, no, I've been shot. It was the peripheral vision out of my left eye of a gentleman running. He was African-American. I knew he was thinly built.
The gunman ran up behind them, shot Jennifer. One gunshot was fired, then he took off.
The bullet enters just inferior to the sternum, goes straight through her. Jennifer runs, her and Cheryl, her friend. And as they run, she makes it a few feet. And she drops. And all people see is a tall, gaunt male running from the scene. He had on a hat, and there was a young woman laying there with her life pouring out on the street.
Witnesses also say the shooter fled the scene in a red car, and he wasn't alone.
He got in, and they described what they thought was two black males in that particular vehicle. It did not have a license plate on it.
Without a license plate number, police know tying someone to this murder won't be easy.
One of the things that kind of hindered us was the fact that there was no license plate on the vehicle. So what we did, we started running information through the Department of Public Safety to try to find red cars. And we looked in the area for red cars.
It's a daunting task, one that could take months to produce a lead. While the search for the mysterious red car continues, investigators ponder possible motives for the shooting.
There's no indication that there was a robbery attempt. Nothing was taken from her. The cell phone was left at the scene. She had a lunch pail of some kind left at the scene. There was no physical contact made with the victim, only the gunshot itself.
Which leaves detectives with only one working theory, that maybe this cold-blooded crime wasn't so random after all.
It appeared to be a direct hit at Jennifer Lewis. No one else was threatened. There was no attempt to hurt anybody else. Jennifer Lewis was the target, and she was the person that was killed.
But who would want to kill someone like Jennifer Lewis?
Jennifer had no enemies that I knew of, none. Speaking of someone who I communicated with almost on a daily basis.
Could not find anything that would indicate anybody would try to harm Jennifer. So we looked at the boyfriend.
And although everyone speaks highly of Jennifer's beloved boyfriend, Melvin, detectives know it's not a bad place to start.
It's not unusual for a spouse or loved one to be involved in a murder. Was there something going on in this relationship that no one knew about? At this point, there's just a lot of questions.
But when investigators speak with Jennifer's boyfriend, Melvin Reynolds, that afternoon, it's clear he's extremely shaken up by Jennifer's death.
Melvin, I know it's been a difficult day, but we got some tough questions we need to ask you. Is there anything going on in your relationship with Jennifer that we need to know about?
No, we were the perfect couple. We were in love.
It wasn't anything that Jennifer wanted that Melvin didn't try to get her. He opened the door, he walked to the class while she was in school. I mean, everything was about Jennifer.
Can you tell me where you were today?
I was here. Cheryl and Jennifer dropped me off at about around 5 and went straight to school.
It appears Melvin is telling the truth, but investigators aren't taking any chances. They ask for and obtain permission to search Melvin's residence.
We went to his apartment. We looked around the apartment and we scanned for red cars. We didn't find the red car that we were looking for.
Is there anyone you can think of that would want to hurt you or Jennifer?
Yes, Sheila.
The woman Melvin mentions is his ex-girlfriend, Sheila Dillard.
He informed them that he ended the relationship a year ago, that his ex-girlfriend Sheila was still trying to be with him.
She had a child with him, so, she had something to hold on to him with.
Melvin tells detectives that since their breakup, Sheila's behavior has grown increasingly erratic.
We learned that Melvin had several instances where things were stolen from his house, from his apartment. At one point when she was visiting Melvin, she took his gun with her when she left. Melvin realized his gun was gone.
Stealing her ex's gun certainly made her a suspect, but that wasn't the only item that she had taken from Melvin's residence.
Sheila also stole a picture of Jennifer Lewis that she found in his apartment.
Could Sheila Dillard have been so jealous of Melvin and Jennifer's budding romance that she murdered Jennifer in cold blood?
Jealousy can make people do crazy things. If she was responsible for this crime, then she could be capable of anything.
You never know what somebody's capable of doing because you never know what they're thinking.
It's been less than 24 hours since nursing student Jennifer Lewis was gunned down on her college campus.
She was a young woman with endless potential. She was a very spiritual person and she wanted to help people. For her to be murdered like this was just shocking.
No one appears more shocked by Jennifer's death than her boyfriend, Melvin Reynolds.
Jennifer and Melvin were pretty serious. They were definitely in love, and they were on the road to be married, actually.
It's Melvin who provides investigators with their first legitimate suspect, his ex-girlfriend and mother of his child, Sheila Dillard.
Sheila Dillard also went to the same church, and she had a son by Melvin. They had broken up. She was very upset with the fact that now she's learned that Melvin had another girlfriend.
Sheila started to use their son to actually insert herself back into Melvin's life in hopes of them rekindling their flame and becoming a couple again.
Melvin also tells the police that Sheila stole a picture of Jennifer from his apartment, along with a .380 caliber pistol.
Melvin at first wasn't really sure whether or not she stole the gun, but he suspected it because he was in the bedroom at one point when she went to pick up his son. His gun was on the nightstand and it disappeared.
Once Melvin realized his gun was gone, he called her and asked her to bring his gun back.
According to Melvin, after he asked Sheila to return the gun, her behavior went from bizarre to downright dangerous.
All of a sudden, you would hear the gun tapping on the phone, the gun goes off, and then there was silence for about 5 minutes, and he kept calling her name.
Melvin thought Sheila had shot herself, but it ended up just being a desperate attempt to get Melvin's attention.
She says, "Oh, I was just kidding, but you can come over and get it." Melvin says, "Hey, I'm not coming over there, but you can bring it to me."
She took the gun to basically get him to come over to her apartment and maybe, you know, woo him back into the bedroom or something. I think it was a desperate plea for him to, like, take her back at any cost.
On March 26th, 3 days after Jennifer's murder, detectives bring Sheila Dillard down to the station for questioning.
We need to ask you some questions about Jennifer.
Well, I knew Jennifer. She dated my ex, Melvin.
Sheila tells police she had nothing to do with Jennifer's murder and that she was doing people's hair when the situation occurred. But when she was asked certain questions pertaining to Melvin, she said that she was still in love with him.
Detectives suspect they may have finally found a motive that fits the crime.
But Sheila looked like a suspect in the beginning.
Jealousy can trigger all sorts of emotions. Sure, Sheila's saying that she has an alibi, but you can tell emotionally that she's in love with him, maybe obsessed with him. And maybe she'd do anything to get him back, including kill his girlfriend.
And detectives have another burning question for Melvin's old flame.
Melvin told us you stole a gun from his house. Is that true?
Yes, I did take his gun.
Just when the police think Sheila's on the verge of confessing, she throws him a curveball.
Sheila, did you use that gun to kill Jennifer Lewis?
No. Like I told y'all, I was doing hair, and I gave that gun back to Melvin 2 weeks ago.
To detectives, Sheila's story sounds dubious.
They asked Sheila to submit to a polygraph test, and she agrees.
At that time, they asked her very pointed questions. Did you kill Jennifer? Did you have anything to do with it?
Sheila appeared very calm throughout the polygraph test, and she answered every question completely. And she still denied any involvement with Jennifer Lewis's death.
She passed the test.
Being that she passed the test, authorities felt that Sheila had nothing to do with the crime.
Detectives receive further corroboration of Sheila's story when they follow up with Melvin Reynolds to determine if Sheila indeed returned his pistol 2 weeks ago.
Sure enough, Melvin says that she did in fact return the weapon. He explains that his weapon is a semi-automatic pistol. Police believe the murder weapon is a revolver.
With Sheila cleared, detectives are back at square one. So they decide to look into the victim's past, and in doing so, uncover a shocking new lead.
Hey, partner, take a look at this.
We ran a background check on Jennifer Lewis, TCIC check. Came up with her being a witness in a murder case.
Now, that could definitely be a motive for murder. Perhaps someone, a killer, is seeking revenge for her willingness to testify.
Investigators pull the file on the murder case. Turns out it occurred a mere 7 months before Jennifer's death. But that's not all.
Jennifer's ex-boyfriend was the killer.
Investigators in Houston have just completed a background check on Jennifer Lewis, a bright young nursing student who was gunned down on the campus where she was attending nursing school. What they've discovered is game-changing.
Jennifer was a witness in a murder case.
Well, if you're investigating a murder case where the victim is a witness in another murder case, of course, you got to look at it. You got to try to figure out what role did she play. Did the investigation in that particular case cover all the bases?
What's even more startling is that Jennifer had an intimate connection to the alleged killer.
Jennifer didn't date much, but she made an exception for this one gentleman. It turned out to be a huge mistake because he was extremely violent.
It had something to do with co-workers situation where he went in and shot up 2 or 3 people. There was a corporate office of Southwest Houston. He was arrested later that day.
The case went to trial, and he was convicted of murder.
Could Jennifer's ex-boyfriend have murdered her as payback for her testimony? The deeper detectives dig into the case file, the more holes they poke in that theory.
That case dealt with a shooting inside a building that Jennifer didn't necessarily have any contact with the building itself. It was just one of those things that she knew the person that was that did the shooting. There was no reason that we thought that case would have caused anybody to come and try to kill Jennifer. We'd asked each other questions. Why would anybody want this young lady killed? And the only answer that we could come back with was, it was a love of quarrel. It was a triangle. Somebody did not want her to be with Melvin, and that person that didn't want her to be with Melvin, from all indication, was Sheila Dillon.
Even though Sheila already passed a polygraph test with flying colors, detectives decide to set up surveillance outside her apartment in Southwest Houston.
Detectives started watching her, and no sooner had they begun surveillance that they noticed something that seemed to tie Sheila back to the crime scene.
They noticed Sheila got out of a car, a red vehicle.
Witnesses at the crime scene reported the killer fled in a red car. Was this a coincidence, or was Sheila and the man behind the wheel of the red car involved in the crime?
Police follow the vehicle after Sheila is dropped off. When they get a closer look, they were surprised to find that the driver fit the general description of the shooter.
He is this mystery man that nobody knows, except we do have this description. It's a slender black male wearing a dark hat.
But unlike the vehicle spotted fleeing the crime scene, this one has plates. Investigators run the tags and determine the car belongs to a man named Brexton Henry. But before police can haul Brexton in for questioning, he makes an unexpected move.
So the gentleman in question decided to go and speak with authorities when he found out that he was a person of interest.
Brexton had found out from a family member that police were looking for him.
He went to authorities and said, hey, I'm not the person you're looking for. I don't know someone named Sheila.
Someone matching your description and the description of your red car was seen dropping off Sheila and another lady last week sometime. Is that accurate?
And I just gave them a lift. I didn't know any of them hoes. I definitely didn't know anybody involved in no murder.
He denied knowing Sheila or having anything to do with Jennifer's murder.
Any way we can look at your car and prove your story?
Well, that's gonna be a problem.
What's the problem?
It was burned a few days ago in the fire.
He claimed that he did not know Sheila, but he did acknowledge giving people a ride. Then his car mysteriously burned. Those were all things that did raise red flags.
Officers ask Brexton Henry to submit to a polygraph. Just like Sheila Dillard, Brexton passes with flying colors.
He really seemed to be telling the truth. At this point, investigators were really frustrated because their best suspects, who had been spotted in a car similar to the killer's getaway car, both passed lie detector tests with ease.
Once again, it appears the investigation is at a standstill. With each day that passes, Jennifer's family grows increasingly upset.
It was just a long time, you know. Somebody has to pay for this. You know, especially my little sister, who, she didn't do anything. She didn't do anything wrong.
I saw the depression, I saw the sadness, I saw the grief. I saw all of the emotion. And being very young, you kind of just take it in because you don't understand it.
I got to know a lot about police investigation because I was always calling and what are you doing? Because after you don't hear anything for a while, what are they doing?
We made the family comfortable with the fact that they knew that we were constantly working this case, along with other cases that we had. But we always went back and we looked over the information that we had. We reviewed it again. And we also went out to do more scanning in the neighborhood. We did all those things to try to figure out who was involved. And this took some time.
An entire year goes by with no new leads in the case.
The case was cold, and we had it on the media, and we were looking for someone to give us a call or get some new information is basically what we were looking for.
No one's called. Nobody's talking. Why is it that nobody's talking?
Finally, on April 5th, 1994, nearly 13 months after Jennifer's murder, a tip comes in.
Out of the blue, we get a call from a deputy in the Harris County Jail. There was an inmate that wanted to speak to someone in the homicide division, a detective, in regards to this girl getting killed at the school.
Was this the big break investigators had been hoping for? Or was it another dead end? As detectives raced to Harris County Jail, no one could imagine the story they were about to hear. It's been more than a year since beautiful nursing student Jennifer Lewis was gunned down. Although police have investigated several promising leads, Jennifer's killer remains at large.
The case had no leads and almost went cold, for lack of better words.
The atmosphere had changed without Jennifer's presence. We're just kind of going through the motions. I don't know how many times I heard the police say that if individuals were behind this, somebody's going to start talking, and we're going to find them.
But just as hope of ever solving the case begins to fade, detectives receive a tip from an inmate at the Harris County Jail.
This inmate claimed to have inside information about the shooting of a girl at a junior college in Houston.
It's definitely the tip that authorities have been looking for because they had no clues, they had no leads. Now they finally have someone who had information to do with Jennifer's murder.
The inmate's name is Patrick Campbell.
There's always somebody that has a conscience, and that man this time was Patrick.
I think Patrick possibly came forward with this information either because he had something on his heart and he just wanted to get it off his chest, or maybe he was hoping to get a lighter sentence.
Whatever Patrick Campbell's motive for coming forward might be, detectives are eager to speak with him.
You keep an open mind, you go over and see what he has to say. What you're looking for in that interview is information that has not been published in the newspapers, on the radio, or any place else.
Talking to Patrick, detectives quickly realize his story is legit.
One night I was with my girlfriend Lisa, and she got a phone call from Sheila.
Sheila who?
Sheila Dillard.
At that point, the lights go off.
At this point, Sheila Dillard's name has come up several times in the investigation, but her name has never been publicly linked to the murder. So when Patrick comes forward and mentions her name without any prompting, it gives him added credibility.
He's saying that he was with Lisa when Lisa received a phone call from Sheila Dillard the day of the shooting.
She called and told us she wanted Lisa to come over there, so we did.
Patrick says that on the night of March 23, 1993, he accompanied his girlfriend Lisa to Sheila Dillard's apartment.
Can you come here for a second?
Once there, Sheila pulled Lisa into her bedroom for a private conversation.
Sheila, what in the world is going on? I did it.
Patrick said he was snooping and he overheard the conversation between Lisa and Sheila.
He was listening at the door, and he overheard Sheila make a statement saying that she got her.
My God, Sheila, do you even realize what you've done?
What did you take that to mean?
The only thing I think it was the murder of the nursing student, because it's all over the news.
Patrick says he asked Lisa about the conversation later that evening.
When Patrick asked his girlfriend, Lisa, did Sheila just say she had something to do with the murder? His girlfriend just brushed it off.
Lisa told him in that discussion that what she and Sheila had talked about had nothing to do with the murder, and that he shouldn't be involved in it.
Patrick's story seems legit, but unfortunately, he never heard Sheila actually confess to Jennifer's murder. Patrick's statement does give investigators ample reason to bring his girlfriend Lisa in for questioning.
After authorities received the tip from Patrick, they went and talked to Patrick's girlfriend. Lisa tells authorities that Sheila told her, quote unquote, I got that bitch.
When she said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, Sheila, do you even realize what you've done?
What do you think she meant by that?
I think she meant that she killed Jennifer Lewis.
This is by far the biggest break in the case. This is the first concrete link between Sheila and Jennifer's murder. But now the problem is that all the eyewitness accounts say that the shooter was a male. So how is Sheila tied to the case, and who pulled the trigger?
So you think she pulled the trigger?
Well, I don't really know too much about that. She didn't go into detail.
Lisa tells investigators if they want that question answered, they should talk to a woman by the name of Samara Bennett.
Samara was also a good friend of Sheila and Sheila's brother.
On April 6th, police questioned Samara Bennett about the shooting.
And the reason we ask you here is that we understand you know Sheila, and that Sheila possibly had something to do with the murder of Jennifer Lewis. Do you know Sheila?
Who?
Sheila Dillard.
I don't know who y'all are talking about.
Samara is definitely hesitant to talk. Sheila's her good friend, so Samara's playing dumb in order to protect her.
But when investigators confront Samara with the sworn statements of Patrick Campbell and his girlfriend Lisa, she changes her tune.
I mean, it was just a regular day. We were just at her house watching TV.
There were a few people there, including Sheila's brother Daryl and a guy named Gary Chop.
Gary came into the picture because he was a known drug user. He got drugs from Daryl, and he owed Daryl money.
Sheila Dillard, she's going around pacing a little antsy. She's got company, and she's going about life just like it's just another day. She's cool until the news comes on.
Our top story tonight, a shooting death at Texas Medical Center.
The lead story on the news is the murder of Jennifer Lewis. The story includes a description of the killer, including his dark cap.
Sheila turns to Chop as they're watching the news and tells him to get rid of his hat.
Get rid of that hat.
Samara tells police that later that evening she confronted Sheila about the exchange with Gary Chop.
Only thing that Sheila would admit to is that I didn't want to kill her. I wanted to hurt her. I wanted her to have pain like my pain because of what Melvin had done to me.
According to Samara, after being dumped by Melvin, Sheila sank into a deep depression.
She lost a lot of weight. Her behavior became increasingly erratic. Even her drug-dealing brother, Daryl, began to worry about her.
Sheila told Daryl what the problem was, this other woman.
What Jennifer represented to her, to Sheila, was an obstruction. She was a unwanted part of a construct and a situation that Sheila was losing control over.
Daryl said, well, I'll take care of it. Take care of this girl that was seeing Melvin, that was causing his sister, Sheila, problem.
And he solicited Chop, who is not only a known drug user, but also a hitman.
Gary Chop was working for a dime rock. Whatever he had to do to get that high, to get that 15-minute hit, Gary would do it. Whether that was wash your car, whether that was go beat up someone. And Gary Chop was known for being a thug. He was known for going and robbing
and hitting and stealing. This was not Chop's first rodeo.
Samara Bennett's statement gives investigators the necessary probable cause to issue arrest warrants for Sheila Dillard, Sheila's brother Daryl, and hitman Gary Chop.
Once we got all this information compiled together, we decided that we needed to make an arrest all at one time.
But as police span out across Houston to arrest their 3 suspects, the case takes yet another bizarre turn.
This story really gets crazy, really damn crazy.
He tried to paint this picture as this good guy, but he was the main reason that this situation ended the way it did.
Months after Jennifer Lewis's death, police in Houston, Texas are on the hunt for a trio of suspects. The first is Sheila Dillard, the former flame of Jennifer's boyfriend, Melvin Reynolds. The other 2 are Sheila's drug-dealing brother, Daryl, and an addict-turned hitman, Gary Chop.
Based on a statement given by Sheila's friend Samara, it appears that Sheila conspired with her brother Daryl and Gary Chop to murder Jennifer Lewis. Also, she could have Lewis's boyfriend Melvin all to herself again.
You don't hire somebody to shoot somebody else just to hurt them. In my eyes, if you were to do that, you are a monster. You have no soul, you have no conscience.
The more we dug into the investigation, the more interviews we did, the more people we talked to, it looked like some kind of love triangle. They were our targets. We acquired warrants from the Harris County District Attorney's Office, and we served the warrants at the same time.
In the early morning hours of April 7th, 1994, heavily armed officers swoop in and arrest Daryl Dillard and Gary Chop at their places of residence. But putting the collar on Sheila Dillard proves more difficult.
They can't find Sheila. She's not at her apartment, she's not at Samara's apartment, or her brother's place.
Ultimately, police do find Sheila Dillard, albeit at the unlikeliest of places.
They found Sheila at Melvin's place at 2 o'clock in the morning. Melvin Reed is Jennifer's boyfriend.
It seems Melvin isn't too upset over the loss of his beloved Jennifer because he began sleeping with Sheila Dillard almost immediately after Jennifer's death.
About a few weeks after Jennifer's death, they became more intimate. They were having sex once or twice a week, and she even went into detail talking about how they decided that they were going to just basically move forward with their lustful actions in his home.
Melvin was one hand in, one hand out, and as you know, if you stand in the middle of a road, sooner or later there will be a collision, and you're going to be at the center of it, and Melvin was at the center of this collision.
But with Melvin and Sheila seemingly back together, investigators wonder, could he be involved in Jennifer's death after all?
One of the detectives on the case was so upset by finding Sheila at Melvin's place that he was hoping that there was something that they could bring him in for.
With no evidence linking Melvin to the crime, investigators take Sheila into custody. They place Sheila, her brother Daryl, and Gary Chop in separate rooms in order to interrogate them. First up is Sheila.
I swear, I had nothing to do with Jennifer's murder. Nothing.
She said that her brother Daryl and Gary Chop was responsible for murdering Jennifer.
How would your brother know about Jennifer if not for you?
Well, I told him about Jennifer. I was upset about it. My brother is trying to protect me.
Her brother Daryl offered to basically eliminate the problem. She claimed to have not known what he meant by that.
Sheila, though, isn't the only one denying prior knowledge of Jennifer's death.
Daryl denies everything. Authorities wound up showing him a statement from his sister saying, hey, my brother was responsible, but he doesn't seem fazed.
I don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't there. I have no idea.
His response was basically, I didn't do it. You've got nothing on me, so take a walk.
Fortunately for investigators, Gary Chop isn't such a tough nut to crack.
When authorities asked Gary about it, he just came clean and he admitted to the crime. He said he actually felt bad for Jennifer because the only person that was supposed to be hurt was the boyfriend, Melvin. Well, they took the information that Chop gave them to more or less get further information from Sheila and Daryl, trying to put them against each other to get a confession.
Yeah, I shot her. Gary doesn't reveal any specifics, but he says, yeah, we did it. We shot her in broad daylight. We gunned her down.
Detectives tell Daryl about Gary Chop's confession. He remains mum. But when they approach Sheila, she finally breaks down.
I didn't want Jennifer to die.
She told me how it happened, why it happened, what her role was. I think she knew at some point that this was going to happen. And I think she wanted to tell her story.
Sheila says it all started one night shortly after Melvin dumped her. Sheila was stalking him and followed him over to Jennifer's place.
Sheila becomes enraged when she sees Melvin give Jennifer a passionate kiss.
At that point, Sheila decides she wants to inflict as much emotional pain on Melvin as possible. And the best way to do that would be to murder Jennifer. She offers her brother Daryl $700 to shoot and kill Jennifer. Daryl's unwilling to pull the trigger himself, but he does enlist the services of Gary Chop. Chop borrows a car, a red sedan, from a friend. Then he and Sheila head back to Jennifer's apartment.
They watched the house. They sat there and they watched it. Chop was looking through some binoculars. He tells Sheila somebody was going in the house. And she said, oh, that's Melvin.
A few minutes later, Sheila says that Jennifer and her classmate Cheryl drove Melvin back to his apartment. After that, Jennifer and Cheryl continued on to campus to attend their evening classes.
Sheila and Chop arrived at the community college. They observed Cheryl and Jennifer getting out of the car.
Jennifer Lewis has no clue that she was just moments, literally minutes and a few steps away.
So Chop tells Sheila to keep the car running. Chop gets out of the car, he runs up behind Jennifer.
Gary Chop shoots Jennifer Lewis once in the back at point-blank range and then makes a beeline back to the red sedan.
He runs back to Sheila Dillard and says, hey, come on, step on it, let's get out of here.
According to Sheila, shortly after the shooting, the enormity of what she'd done began to sink in.
She starts freaking out and she's chanting, Jennifer's just going to the hospital, like she's trying to tell herself that Jennifer's going to be okay. At that point, Chop turns to Sheila and said, no, I got her real good.
Sheila claims Gary Chop encouraged her to stick to the plan. Gary later gave the murder weapon to Sheila's brother Daryl so he could dispose of it.
Daryl maintained the gun for a few weeks. When Sheila realized that he had the gun, she told him you got to get rid of it.
A few weeks after the shooting, Daryl threw the gun into a nearby bayou, and Sheila gave him $700. Daryl got $400, and Chop got $300.
Chop never received that $300 because he was getting crack on credit from Daryl, so when the hit was done, he had $0.
It's a harrowing story, but one thing detectives can't figure out is how Sheila managed to pass her initial polygraph test.
Her and Lisa decide, why don't you take some oxycodone? And she chases that with a couple of beers or some liquor, and she goes there, and some kind of way, she manages not only to pass this lie detector test, but to fabricate this story.
With Sheila Dillard's confession in tow, detectives charge her and Gary Chop with murder. They also charge Sheila's brother Daryl with tampering with evidence.
It was a relief, and I was so happy. I was so happy because they said they got them. When they said they got them, I knew everything was going to be okay.
Finally, my first word was finally. Finally, we get justice, finally.
Before the case ever goes to trial, two of the suspects agree to plead guilty.
Sheila waived her right to counsel, wound up receiving 50 years after a murder conviction.
Gary Chop accepted a life sentence for his role in the murder of Jennifer Lewis.
Daryl Dillard opts to plead not guilty and take his chances at trial, but a jury finds Daryl guilty as well.
Daryl Dillard received a 20-year sentence for his role in the murder of Jennifer Lewis for tampering with evidence.
But even with justice served, the tragic sequence of events that culminated in Jennifer's murder continues to haunt her friends and family.
So many people were affected by her death. She had tons of friends. She was a positive influence for all of them. So when you take that positive influence out, you change the dynamics of everyone's lives.
Sheila thought because they shared a child together that they were going to get back together. Jennifer had no idea, and ultimately that trust in this man that she fell in love with led to her death.
Jennifer Lewis was a woman that wanted a life. She was a nursing student from a good, solid, spiritual Christian family. All Jennifer did was fall in love with the wrong man.